It is 10:45 p.m. West Coast time on Monday, March 24th. We are well into week 9 of Fat Nixon Pervert Hoover's second term. And the last couple of months have been rough, and I have been trying very, very hard. I've been trying very, very hard to find things that I am grateful for. And so I started making a list. It's like I am grateful that I have never had to defend a grown man who was walking behind a 13-year-old girl and said, in 5 or 10 years, I could be dating you. I have never had to defend an adult man who has said that his own daughter was so attractive that if she wasn't his daughter, he would be dating her. I am grateful that I have never had to defend a man who went on Howard Stern, and when Howard Stern referred to my daughter as a hot piece of ass, I agreed with him. I'm grateful that I've never had to defend a man who, along with his 2 adult sons, with their company, committed so much fraud over the course of a decade that they owe the state of New York almost $600 billion, and that's still pending. I am grateful that I have never had to defend a man whose company was found guilty of 17 felonies related to fraud in 2022. I am grateful that I've never found myself in a position to defend a man who was found guilty, who was convicted on 34 felony counts for paying off 2 women $130,000 apiece who I had sex with while I was married to other women, one of whom was several months pregnant with my youngest son, in order to improperly try to influence the 2016 election with his little mushroom dick. I'm incredibly grateful that I have never found myself in a position of having to or wanting to defend a man who is an adjudicated rapist. I've never had to defend a man who has 25 plus civil lawsuits pending against him for sexual harassment and sexual assault. I have never had to defend a man who sprays himself with orange whatever and spends an hour every morning having his hair done and believing that spraying yourself orange and having your hair done for 2 hours every morning is peak masculinity. Can you imagine how fucking pathetic that is? I have never defended a man whose best friend for 15 years was Jeffrey Epstein. I've never had Jeffrey Epstein traffic a young woman into this country who became my 3rd wife. A woman who is smarter than him, by the way. I've never had the experience of having my youngest son recommend to me strongly that I should bring the Tate brothers back into the United States. I've never had to defend a grown man who wears diapers, who shits himself regularly. I've never had to defend as being masculine a grown-ass man who fucking cheats at golf. I've never had to defend a man who has cheated on every single woman he's ever married, who's had, I don't know, 5 or 6 kids by 3 different baby mamas. I mean, that's not Elon numbers, but he's trying. I've never had to defend a man who absolutely fucking hates his 2 oldest sons. His 2 oldest sons who spend every single fucking minute of every single day craving his approval and perpetually failing in that regard. I've never had to defend a man who steals from the people who support him, who grifts every single fucking dime that his supporters have to offer for a legal defense fund and sells them shiny tennis shoes and autographed Bibles and NFTs and little pieces of his suits. I've never had to defend a man who incited an insurrection at the Capitol, who tried to overturn an election because his ego is so goddamn fragile that I was willing to commit felonies on his behalf and go to prison and hope that he got reelected so that he would pardon me for shitting in my own hand and smearing it on the wall inside the Capitol. I've never had to defend a man like that. I've never had to defend a grown-ass man who mocks the disabled. And I've never been stupid enough and gullible enough to believe that there's a small group of billionaires in Washington, D.C. who are fighting for me and not fighting for them. I have never been dumb and gullible enough to cheer on a small group of billionaires who are taking away every single government benefit that I'm entitled to and celebrate them doing that to me. I have never been so consumed, well, as Donald Trump is, with the size of Barack Obama's dick. I have never been so consumed with racism and hatred and bigotry and misogyny and transphobia and homophobia and ableism that I celebrate the harm that my government does to me, as long as the harm that my government does to those people exceeds that harm that my government does to me. I don't have kids, but if I did, I imagine that I wouldn't celebrate the federal government shutting down the Department of Education that would harm my own child as long as it harmed Black and brown and trans kids more. I am grateful that I am not so incredibly fragile and weak and scared and frightened and such a snowflake and self-hating, and that I'm consumed with hatred for every single human being that is not exactly like me, such that I can't see that I am actually the DEI hire. the meritocracy that we've had in prior administrations didn't loop in journalists on classified text message threads, because that's never happened before. It's happened now with a bunch of white guys who were supposedly part of the meritocracy, and they compromised and put at risk members of the United States military who volunteered to serve because they are that fucking dumb and incompetent. I'm grateful for the education and critical thinking skills that I have. And I'm grateful that in order to feel good about me, I don't need the federal government to erase Jackie Robinson or Navajo code talkers from World War II, or the LGBTQ community, or women and their accomplishments at NASA, or our history with First Nations populations. I don't need, in order to feel better about me, I don't need to see our federal government kidnapping, abducting people who are in this country legally, expressing their First Amendment rights, and taking away their due process rights and shipping them off to an absolutely fucking brutal prison in El Salvador. Because I'm not a little bitch. And white men who support Donald Trump, you're a little bitch. You are a fragile, snowflake little bitch who is afraid of literally absolutely everything that is not exactly like you. Because you know that if the playing field is leveled, you will lose. You will lose. And that is why you are supporting all of the absolutely fucking heinous things that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Marco Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard. That is why you are supporting everything that they are doing, because you are the DEI hire. Every single fucking white male in the United States of America in March of 2025, you are the DEI hire. And you know that. You know that. And that is why you are cheering this on. That is why you have lost all of your empathy. Because you know that you can't succeed unless everybody who's not exactly like you fails. And Donald Trump and his administration is making sure that every single person in the United States of America who is not exactly like you is failing, because you can't make it on your own. You can't make it on your own without Daddy Trump. And Daddy Trump is taking care of you, because Daddy Trump is hurting. He is using the power of the federal government to hurt every single person who is not exactly like you so that you can succeed, because you can't succeed on your own, because you're dumb and you're gullible and you're very easily manipulated and you're cruel, and you form community with other people exactly like you through your acts of cruelty to others who are not like you. How fucking pathetic and sad is that? You can't compete. You can't compete. And you know you can't compete. And you think Elon Musk is fighting for you. I almost feel bad for you guys. I almost feel empathy for you, but for your racism and your bigotry and your misogyny and your ableism and your transphobia and your homophobia and your hatred of education, your absolute hatred of education because it's something else that you were denied. And you feel and you believe and you've been taught that because you are a white man, that this country owes you a certain station in life that is elevated above every single person that is not exactly like you. So it's like when I try to think about and figure out like what I'm grateful for, I am grateful that I am not like you. I've earned every single thing that I have in my life except for my white privilege, my male privilege, my straight privilege, my educational privilege, my class privilege. I am afforded every single privilege that exists in the United States of America except for generational wealth. And you dumb fuckers think that Donald Trump is going to provide you with that. And you are so fucking lost in the sauce of all of that that you, year after year after year after year, election cycle after election cycle after election cycle, you vote against your own interests because you think that people who aren't like you are going to get it worse than you get it. You actually believe that there's a group of billionaires in Washington, D.C. who are fighting on your behalf. Were you dropped on your head as a baby? You have given away every advantage that this country has given you, most of which you didn't earn, because you are so consumed with seeing people who aren't exactly like you being hurt more than you are. I mean, let's not even get started on your daughters. Voting against the rights of your own fucking daughters and mothers and sisters. I literally cannot imagine anything worse in March of 2025 than being a white man who supports Donald Trump. Because deep down, you know, it's like, it's 1:30 in the morning. Everybody in your household is already in bed. You stayed up. You're watching Dateline or whatever because you're so obsessed with black on black crime that it's completely lost on you that there's a television series on NBC about white on white crime that has been on the air for 35 fucking years. But you're like, black on black crime. And it's like, that episode winds down and you go into the bathroom to brush your teeth or whatever before you go to bed, and you have that moment. You have that moment where you are standing in front of the mirror and you look yourself in the eye and you know You did not earn everything that you have, but you are so goddamn terrified of losing what you do have that you become overwhelmed and consumed with hatred for people who are not like you. And so you vote against your own interests. You vote against your wife's interests. You vote against your kids' interests. You vote against your daughter's interests. Because you hope that even the bad things that happen to you, you vote for worse things happening to people who are not like you. And it's not entirely your fault, you know. It's largely because you're fucking stupid and gullible and mean. Because you feel cheated. Because Fox News sold you some fucking bill of goods. You should have X, Y, and Z, but you don't because of the queers, because of the immigrants, because of the blacks, because of the Mexicans, because of women. Yeah. Women, that's the big one for you guys, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It really is. Man. We are now a third world nation because of you, because of white men who support Donald Trump, and the majority of white women who voted for Donald Trump, who support men like you because they benefit from white supremacy and the patriarchy. This country would be dramatically better off without all of you. And you know that too. But you are so consumed with your fear. But you know that's true. And you refuse to change because I have a right. I have a right. Well, I hope you get absolutely every single thing that you voted for. And from here on out, every single day, I hope you have the day that you voted for. Have a great week.